There we go. Thank you. We're recording now, this is just so we need to make a record today of any questions we get. If there's anything that comes up that's something we want to clarify about the invitation to bid itself, then that's how we're going to use the recording. We'll be able to review what was asked so we can produce written answers, which Michael, I understand, will be posted as an amendment to the invitation to bid. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Thanks. So, and before we get with the presentation, let's just do a quick round just to the people on the Forestry Division side who are in the meeting. So if you're with Forestry, just go ahead and turn your video on and just do a quick 2-second intro. Starting with maybe Andrew.
Good afternoon, everybody. Andrew Frederick. I'm with the Resource Management Bureau Chief with New Mexico Forestry Division in Santa Fe.
Thanks, and Laura, you're on. Good to see you on, Laura. Why don't you go ahead and go next? And Laura, we don't have audio for you right now. Well, hold on, Laura. I see Alex Etkind in the room.
Good afternoon. Alex Etkind. I'm a project forester with the Las Vegas district.
Let me try this again. Better? Okay.
Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Laura McCarthy, State Forester. I just want to really thank you all. I know you're super busy. So again, really appreciate you being here this afternoon.
And Clay, I see you're in the room.
Afternoon, I am Clay with the Bernalillo District Resource Forester.
Great. And anybody else I'm missing from forestry? I don't think I'm going to make it mandatory. I think we can move on, but feel free to unmute and introduce yourself.
Shannon Atenzio on the District Forester for Las Vegas.
Shannon?
Mary Stuver, another District Forester.
I'm Bobby Cordova. I am the Federal Compliance Officer for State Forestry.
Alina Osimowitz, Project Forester on the Cimarron District.
Great, thanks. And last call, no takers. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing screen and we'll get on with the presentation part of it. So I'm going to move through a presentation and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. Great, so can everybody see the full screen title screen here?
Yes.
Okay. So we're talking about the Forest Management Treatment Statewide Price Agreement. There have been several iterations of this. I do expect that most of the people on the call today are actually currently on the agreement. So we're going to be focusing on how we use the statewide price agreement is kind of the most important message that we want to convey today. And so just to be very clear, this is a statewide agreement. That means any state agency or unit of government in New Mexico may use it. And the vast majority of the work that the New Mexico Forestry Division does, the forestry work is accomplished by using this agreement and selecting contractors from it. So being on it is important, and being on it, and these can go for as long as 4 years. And so this period we're in right now is your chance. If you haven't done it before, it's your chance to get on that list. You don't want to miss the opportunity if you're interested in working with us over the next 4 years. And then the last point here on this slide is the most important. So contractors may not adjust prices to compete for Forestry Division projects once you've bid your prices on the agreement. We pay the bid prices exactly, no more and no less. One thing we're changing this year, and we'll talk about it later, is we've added an escalation, de-escalation clause to the agreement, and we'll talk about that. So there is some nuance there. There is a chance once a year to adjust your prices, but it's not automatic and you have to be on top of it. And the reason we bring this up is because we know that a lot of contractors are also on a price agreement that the state land office initiated and tend to, the state land office uses their agreement a little bit differently than we do. Contractors on that agreement have been allowed, I understand, to lower their prices based on, from the prices down to a different number. That's not the way that we are allowed in the Forestry Division to use our price agreement. So the price you bid is the price you're paid no matter what. And the only way to change that is the official escalation, de-escalation process that happens once a year. A quick plug for SAM.gov. Bobby Cordova is on the meeting today. I expect several of you know her and have met her. Active registration with SAM.gov is required for any project that's funded with federal dollars. And this is often the case with the New Mexico Forestry Division. So we have state funding, we have federal funding. Being on the agreement itself is not enough. If the project is being funded with state dollars, you will be passed over for any project using state funding and on to the next contractor if you're not registered and active with SAM.gov. I know a lot of people have been working and may be struggling to keep their registration active and to get it updated. And we feel for you all. And Bobby's our person in house who is like she's our federal compliance officer, and is the person who's the expert at this sort of thing. And Bobby, if you want to chime in for a second on this slide, you're more than welcome to. And I don't hear Bobby. Bobby, you can interrupt me later if you want to make a point, but we'll move on. Okay, this is more for some just a review of things that are different from the current statewide price agreement. These are some major changes that we've done this year. Difficult conditions premiums. In past years, we've had specific bid items for steep slope versions of the same practice. So mechanical thinning, mixed conifer forests, steep slope, or just mechanical. So you won't have to bid twice. So those have been removed. There's actually a matrix we're going to start using that allows our foresters to identify when either steep slopes or some other difficult condition exists. And that will be determined at the project development stage. And when you're approached about a project, if you're on the agreement, then you'll have that information at that point. But you won't have to bid separately for steep slope items on this agreement. The price escalation and reduction clause, I mentioned that before, and we'll have a slide later about that. There's some two new forest types relevant for mechanical and hand thinning bid items. Those are spruce fir and post fire. We've had comments. It's just a little more flexibility. The forest type can obviously impact prices. Post fire conditions, in many projects we understand, obviously the wood coming out might not be as marketable or usable, and that can affect prices. So that's the reason we're adding those. We have we've gotten some new stocking level definitions defined for mechanical and hand thinning that are based on if the defensible space items on previous price agreements. And there's various new bid items altogether that we'll go over individually. So this slide is about the difficult conditions premium. Again, you won't bid separately on steep slopes. And you can review this in the ITB itself. Take your time to understand it, please, before you bid on your items. But essentially, if there's extensive coverage of surface rock in a project that makes operating machines more difficult, or of course a slope, we've kind of specified 3 different levels of those conditions existing. So 25% of an area of surface rock is a level A. Up to 10% slope, that's considered also a level A. Those are normal conditions, and you see there level A treatments. Those are considered normal, so there's no premium increase. If there is both steep slope up to 25% or up to 50% surface area of rock, those are two moderately difficult B conditions, and if they both exist on a project, that makes a C, which kicks you to the 30% premium. If one of those exists, then you're at the level B, and if either of those exist at the C difficulty, I know this is confusing, but just please study this and ask questions later. It's a 30% premium increase for the bid item. And again, this is the 30. So that means that if you're offered a project that includes slopes above 25%, which is considered very difficult conditions. Again, this is for across many different bid items have this premium as a potential. Then this is determined by our foresters when they're designing the project, or whatever the project manager is from whichever state agency is using our price agreement. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'll summarize it, but this is the exact clause that appears in the invitation to bid. You know, we wanted, you know, we didn't, one of the reasons we've got this open now is because, you know, obviously inflation has been a big issue with both nationally and internationally the past couple of years. Gas prices have been pretty variable, have been going up. It's obviously a major input into our work. And so both a chance to rebid your items across this whole statewide price agreement, in addition to the flexibility this clause gives us in the future with uncertainty of future inflation. So that's why we've got it in here. And essentially how it works is, you know, you should be familiar. Once you're on it for a year, and then you have to be, you have to opt into the following year, and that can go up to 4 years. So every year you have to renew up to 4 years. At the time of renewal, you will be offered price escalation and de-escalation percentages based on requests that people on the agreement have made. And so you have to send us a request. So I'd send it to your district forester or a forester you're working with, usually a district forester, with the information here. So the price agreement item number, the current item price, your proposed new price, and the percentage increase, and a detailed explanation for the price change request with any additional information you can. So that's evidence of you know, input costs that have gone up for you, or any other evidence that supports your request to change your price on the agreement, up or down. And then we review those, and then we would offer them to each of the vendors at the time of renewal on the renewal form. Vegetation fuel types for mechanical and hand thinning. So this is the same, mostly the same list as before, but now we've got post-fire treatment type at the bottom there, and we've also got the spruce fir type, and those two types are new from previous agreements. Stocking levels for mechanical and hand thinning. So you'll notice, you know, again, you'll notice on for the mechanical thinning and hand thinning items, you have to bid multiple times on these, and it's by stocking levels and also by forest type. And so that's probably almost probably the majority of items you'll be bidding on are within the mechanical and hand thinning items, but there are just several variations of that based on the conditions of the project. And so just reviewing these, and you know, we've got it down here to basal area factors, so that should help you understand the level of effort on those acres when they're called out in a project that you're offered. New bid items. So this is an overview of new bid items. We've got a cut skid deck bid item. We never had that one before. There's a fire line construction and maintenance bid item, which is an hourly rate, basically, you know, the labor of participating in that. Wood hauling is a mileage cost. There's a wood hauling for both timber and firewood, chips and firewood. So like a dump truck situation, and then the wood hauling for timber, obviously a log truck situation. machine loading and unloading. So that would be oftentimes paired with the hauling operations, loading up a log truck. Mobilization, this could be applied to many different projects. So it's a one-time, one way from your base of operations to the project site. And so this helps, add some cost to people to maybe hopefully get you willing to go a little further for some of our more remote projects. Fuel wood processing. So this is turning logs into firewood, and that's a cordage basis. Manual project support and enclosure is a per hour, kind of like a basic, this is kind of like a basic catch-all hourly labor rate item. Oftentimes in our prescriptions, we have mitigation actions or closure actions, or you have to remove and replace a fence in order to get site access. There's kind of a variety of different things that add extra effort to the project. And this would just, we'd be able to estimate those hours on a project, and then based on the rate you bid for this item, that's how you would be compensated. There's a mapping item. It's kind of a basic mapping item. It's kind of like a pretty blunt instrument, but it is an acre basis. So if we need to go out there and have somebody walk a bunch of acres and produce, produce maps for us, then this is a new way we can do that. And then planting, seeding, and mulching, which is another labor rate. This does not include material costs. We're assuming that people using this agreement will need to supply the mulch or the seed or the plant materials. But it's another way to engage our contractors in participating in those activities. Just reviewing a few of these a little bit more specifically. Project mobilization, again, is a per mileage cost. Wood hauling for timber, also mileage. And we've got the important part here is we have these are log trucks, and we've got some MBF, estimates. So we can, we're expecting, that's a log truck that can handle that much, and that's the mileage for that variety of log truck, right? So, short loads and long loads are kind of in the same mileage rate here, but just want to, we needed to put some level of specification in there about what your, what's expected there out of a log truck. Wood hauling, again, similar idea. It's 1 to 3 cords or 5 to 15 cubic yards per load. This is kind of, I already kind of discussed this. It's the hourly rate on manual project support and closure specifications. So we've got some scenarios here: use of hand tools and mechanical equipment on a variety of terrain types. So all of these details, these are the specifications you'll find right there in the bid document. Planting, seeding, and mulching. Again, I kind of covered this a few slides ago. And mapping, just make sure you're reading through all these before you bid the prices. So, these are not extensive specifications, but they're just enough where we hope that you can key in your prices and give a competitive bid. And hey, that's actually the end of the slideshow. So, I know that was a lot very fast, and we can go back to anything you'd like to cover or discuss. But basically, yeah, from here on out, the time is yours. And we've got a lot of people in the room to help answer questions, and we'll write them all down and get them posted if we need to the website.
Jacob, my name is Max Wade. I'm with Galloping Goat Grazing, and we do the prescribed goat grazing with Clay in the Bernalillo district. And on this price agreement, looking there, there's no consideration on the grazing for like the light, medium, heavy, the percentage potential increases. And so, we've ran into some projects already where, it's considerably more work, denser vegetation and that type of thing. Is there a way to work around that with this current agreement?
We can potentially do an amendment. Michael, if you're online, you can kind of chime in here. We would basically, we could consider that a request and come up with some new bid items potentially, or do we have that flexibility at this point, Michael?
Yes, you do have that flexibility. It's all up to the agency's desire.
Okay. So maybe I think that I'll probably talk to Clay about this one offline and we can evaluate that. And but basically we didn't change the specifications for prescribed grazing since the last agreement. And what you're asking for, Max, again, is a light, medium, heavy variety so that they can be called out based on like coverage of whatever we're eating through there with the goats, would you say?
Yeah, I think that when you talk to Clay, he'll be able to explain it to you pretty well on some of the things we've encountered so far. And so, yeah, I think if we can do that, have that consideration of the light, medium, and heavy, that would help things out a lot.
Okay, we'll think about it. Thanks for the comment.
You bet.
There's a question in the chat. Will this agreement be used in the Hermits Peak, Calf Canyon burn scar or other burn scar work? Will the Forest Service provide seed mix specifications? Please clarify mulching. So I think that for the planting, and so the first part of the question is yes. You know, any agency or unit of government can use this price agreement. So it's not, it's not limited by geography. It's really by specific agency funding authorities and just basic authorities, whoever might be using it. And so, you know, we get some federal money, we can use it on private lands. Then we could potentially be using this on private lands that were burned, for example, or another agency could. So yes, I mean, there's the answer to that is yeah, potentially using the burn scar. And that's one of the reasons we added the new, the post-fire forest type, just recognizing that it's a little bit different operating environment when you're just in thick, dead timber, you know, versus ponderosa. So will the Forest Service provide seed mix spec? So the planting and the seeding and the mulching categories, you're actually bidding on your hourly rate to do those physical activities. And the materials, again, would be provided by whichever agency was using this price agreement. And so, again, your price should not include, and this should be clear in the invitation to bid, it's a labor hourly rate. It's for the physical labor. It's not for providing the materials themselves. So this is more of the implementation, and somebody else would be buying that stuff and giving it to you at the project site. Mr. Raker.
Racher, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I've got a questions for you. I'll start off with the first one being project mobilization. Is that a per project cost or per machine cost? For example, it would be different moving a single machine to a project compared to moving 5 machines to a project.
I think we're going to need to clarify that in the bid document.
Okay, and I can type these into the chat if you need them documented there or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a good question though, and I think we probably do need to get specific about that, and where it would apply just to machines or if it would. I mean, there's so many different types of projects, and we have one mobilization cost, so we'll put in some more guidance there, I think.
Yeah. Secondly, very happy to see. I was a little worried about you guys having the ability to do a yearly price increase. But is there a reason that it's capped at 10%? And I'll give you for example, on most of the federal contracts over the past year, we've seen between 12 and 20% increases across the board. And the federal contracting officers have, without question, accepted those.
I'd like to chime in on that. I'm Michael with State Purchasing. That's just our standard requirement at this point. And I'd like to also let you know that this escalation does not include for profits. You cannot increase just for profits. It has to be for expenses that are beyond your control that have been raised on you, whether it's labor rates or equipment rates or material rates.
Sure, I understand that, Michael. But I mean, as Jacob talked about a little bit, I mean, we've seen about 8% inflation, maybe a little more in the past year. We've seen on our federal contracts, we've seen our contract labor rates increase by 12%. And we've seen fuel prices almost double, which, just that combined gives us price increases easily in the teens.
And do you have a chance every single year to do that? Or, I mean, because you're going to have a chance every single year across 4 years, you could increase, if that prices keep going up, you can continue to request price increases. So, 10% can turn into 40% over 4 years.
Yeah, it'd actually be a little bit more than that, but just the year-to-year increases. I mean, most of the time we see 1%, 2%, 3% increases. It's just in the past year and a half that we've really seen those huge jumps in numbers. So, that's the only thing that having that cap at 10% kind of raised a question in my mind.
I doubt that it would increase above 10% for 4 consecutive years. So, like you're saying, 10% a year, that's 40% increase over the course of 4 years. So that's quite a bit of an increase there. And so, I mean, I doubt it's going to be over 10% every single year of inflation.
Oh, I would agree with you there. And if it does, we've got bigger problems than this contract, I think.
Yeah, and that may raise an issue. If inflation does go over 10% every year, then it may get to a point where we have to go out and with a new solicitation in the future year before this one actually expires in 4 years. So, that might even just be a moot point at that time.
Okay.
That's a good point, Michael. We're only 2 years right now past the previous time we've bid, and that's a big reason why we've gone out quicker than we normally would, because we know about inflation. So,
last question for now, anyway, Jacob. On the cut, skid, and deck treatments that you have, you do not have those by forest type and density. You just have it as a single line item across forest types and density. Any suggestion of where you're going to use those cut, skid, and deck treatments?
Yeah, and Clay can actually chime in here if you want. He helped me write that. I think a lot of the spec came from Clay, but I think our original thinking, Clay, remind me if I'm wrong, is that we have a pretty narrow forest type situation where we would be calling out a cut skid deck operation, and the variety isn't necessarily what you would imagine. And between that and the significant variety in our thinning, our mechanical thinning, we have pretty good coverage. But Clay, do you have anything to add?
I think you kind of hit it there, Jacob. I do recall we talked about this and we went over most of our projects where we're actually implementing a cut skid deck, and I think without fail is all in ponderosa pine. That's not to say it couldn't get outside of that, and if it does, we have some creativity and some other mechanisms such as an RFP to procure contractors for that if the prices don't match up properly.
Brent, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's an answer. you know,
Okay, we'll take a look. We will take a look at the cut skid deck item again, just to give it another read through, and add that to our list to consider before we do any potential amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good, Jaime, you got your hand up?
Yes, I'm the grass guru down here in Eddy County. Do herbicide treatment. I'm on the thing for forest thinning. Now, I've been on the work side of it. Haven't been on the bid side of it until here recently. So I was wondering when it's priced out per acre. Now, what does that mean per acre if I go in to do herbicide, basal treatment, stuff like that? Is it so many trees, so much basal per acre, or am I spraying an entire acre? And are those chemicals supplied, or do I supply them as I go?
One of our forester, is there a forester on here that's actually used the, I mean, I think you're talking not about the thinning items, but you're talking about the chemical application items. And
Yes.
we have a cut stump treatment and we have a spray treatment. Those traditionally are just like an acre charge. And, you know, we're looking at, again, one of our foresters wants to chime in on how those tend to be used by the division. Please feel free.
So you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Jacob. We'll use that as an acrely rate, and that does put the cost of the chemical back onto the contractor. So when you're bidding those prices, you would want to be factoring in chemical. And that's one of those things. I know that's another item that's increased significantly in the last year and a half. So
yeah.
But yes, it is an acrely rate. Typically, if you're doing like a cut stump or something, you're gonna have if you're just spraying, you know, it'll be manual spraying or cut stump, or it'll be paired with some sort of slash treatment and thinning treatment. So you know, just kind of keep in mind that there's other treatment types that will be matched up with that in tandem.
Right. So what I'm asking is, it's based off per acre, but I mean, am I going in and spraying an entire acre, you know, every square foot, or is it 40 basils per acre, 800?
It would be, yeah, it would be more like the project plan, the work plan would describe the expectations there. But
Okay.
again, like if it's, you know, you're spraying for a thistle, you know, then you're spot spraying for thistle,
Right.
right? You're not, or if you're, you know, doing stump treatments on tamarisk, it's just where the tamarisk are. It's not the whole acre. It's just where the trees are. So, Clay, do you agree with that?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head there. Typically, what we do is manual backpack spraying on a physical stump. We sometimes will do a hack and squirt or just a basal. You're not doing every square foot of that by any means, though. You're gonna you know, cut down an elm and you're gonna basal spray the stump of that elm.
Okay, gotcha.
And we got another hand up, Hunter.
Hey, my name's Hunter. I'm new to this, but I got a few questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sound good.
Cool, awesome. My first question is about the post-fire bracket. Is there work within that that's appropriate for like a single resource faller? Like, are you going to do hazard mitigation? Are there going to be climbers, something like that?
I'll open this one up to our foresters.
No, we don't really do any arbory work, not even at the SWCD level. That's more of a technical expertise that goes along with that title. I don't anticipate us doing any climbing in the future.
No, and there's not currently a bid item for it. So, but the falling and so Jacob, what item is he referring to exactly?
You mentioned the post-fire for hazard trees. So like, are you talking about like defensible space around homes? Those sorts of items?
Or mitigation for infrastructure like roadsides, infrastructure buildings, whatever would be on the state property. I guess I'm just curious if there's going to be applicable opportunity for like single resource, like precision falling type work that doesn't involve like a full scope material removal and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, everything requires, a lot of it is handwork. So, I mean, we have hand thinning, right? And that's different forest types and stocking levels. And so like that seems like the most applicable for your situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
again, if there's a limited set of things you feel like you can bid on as a provider, then you just bid on those. There's no expectation you're bidding on the whole agreement. Yeah.
And I think this question, there's not a per tree, hazard tree bid item on here. So that, I think that was your question. We're not doing like $2,000 per tree for hazard tree like some other companies do. That's not going to be part of this.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. It would still be a per acre hand thinning. It's just like falling work. Got it. Thank you.
The Grass Guru, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question?
Oh, no. I didn't put it down. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'm going to go back to the chat here. Clay says, Jacob can chime in if I'm incorrect, but mulching will refer to the manual labor active. Yeah, that's true. So the mulching versus mastication. So mastication, that does fall under mechanical thinning. And then if we talk about mulching with the seeding mulching labor rate, that's the act of applying the mulch. That's correct, Clay. And the specifications in the, for all the thinning items are pretty extensive. So it should be pretty clear when you're bidding what that is. Just make sure you're referring to those specifications at the time of bidding.
Jacob, I wanted to apologize. My computer froze up when you were talking about the SAM.gov and I couldn't get anything done. So my name is Bobby Cordova. I am the Federal Compliance Officer for State Forestry. And I want to, in the chat, go ahead and offer my email address out there. Jacob is correct. If federal funds are used, you must be federally compliant. To be federally compliant, you have to be registered in SAM.gov. SAM.gov is a systems award management, and that is the federal government that hosts that website. On the website, when you get registered, you will become active for 1 year. In order for us, forestry, to pay you with federal funds, you have to be active. And so that is part of what I track for forestry. They've run into some changes this year. There's a lot of challenges with trying to get registered with SAM.gov, and that's putting it mildly. They had a lot of fraud going on, and so because of it, they started some new processes of validating yourself as a business or an entity. I would be more than happy to help any of you that I can if you have questions about how to get through the crazy process. So I left my email in there. If you want to shoot me an email, I'll be happy to help you. But that is a critical component for federal funds. That's with anyone. And so it's a renewal every year. This year, it's going to be a little bit more tedious, as I was pointing out. Hopefully next year, they're telling us it's just a simple going through the questions and you should be renewed usually within 3 to 5 days. So it is a critical, you have to be federally compliant for federal funds. So if anyone has questions about it, I'd be happy to try to answer them now, or you can also shoot me an email and I can try and reach out to you there as well to help you with that process.
This is Michael with State Purchasing. I don't know if this question is for you, Bobby, or for somebody else, but when are you going to check for verification of SAM.gov registration of the companies? Is it before purchase order is issued or before work plan is issued, or is it when we're looking at the bids? Are we going to have to look at that point?
Through the state forestry process, when we actually go through the creation of the contract, there is a step within there that goes through federal compliance. I track about 175 of our contractors and subrecipients pretty much constantly. And so the contractors are a little bit easier because it's simply your sam.gov. And so those I track weekly. I'll pull them up through sam.gov. I have my spreadsheet set up on a conditional formatting, and basically when you get 60 days out, you start glowing yellow, and I know immediately I've got to look at those specific entities. So I track them pretty much all of the time. And of late, with this last year, now that we've gone to this validation process, as you become active in sam.gov, well, one of the changes in sam.gov allows me to follow you. And so once you're on the statewide price agreement, I've gone through and I've actually selected all of the contractors we have on there, and I follow them. So as soon as a change is made to your application, to your account in sam.gov, I get an email. And so when you get updated, I pull a copy of your certificate from sam.gov showing that you are active, and I actually send the new one out to the contractor in an email format. And I basically have been telling the contractors, if you're applying for any application that has federal funds, or if you're doing a proposal or a bid that has federal funds, I'm recommending you just attach that certificate showing that you're active in sam.gov to your bid, proposal, what have you, so that whoever's scoring it or rating it is going to know in an instant you're federally compliant.
And this is not something that, this is different for the statewide price agreement. That would be if there's a different request for proposals or applications. So it's like, and Michael, to answer your question, it's pre-PO. So if it's federal money that's funding the work, it's before the PO can get created. When we're looking at selecting a contractor, Bobby's verifying that the contractor we're proposing to use is active in sam.gov. Bobby's
Jacob's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Lanford, your hand's up. Chime in.
Yes, sir. I had one quick question. With the fire line construction and maintenance, are you anticipating using hand crews, or would that be mechanical?
You know, that's a per acre. Is that an acre rate? Can you remind me?
Sir, hourly.
Look at that. Is it an hourly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that we were thinking about a hand crew digging line.
Okay, because on the line item breakdown, it says a 10-foot wide line.
Then we don't specify in the ITB. It's been a while since we wrote it. We don't specify mechanical or hand.
No, sir, not in the breakdown.
We'll take a look at it, but I think that because it's and you said it's hourly. Sorry to keep asking about my own agreement.
Yeah, so in the breakdown, it said that it would be responsible for a 10-foot wide all vegetation line. And that's why I was asking if you're expecting a hand crew to do 10-foot, or would it be a mechanical use?
Yeah, so if we're asking for hourly rate, we definitely intended it to be a hand crew. Or light mechanical.
I think so. Or mechanical?
Or light mechanical. I think that, I mean, for hourly rate, you know, we've got some, if it's a light mechanical equipment, some of the things have like hand or light mechanical work as language in there. But for the line, I think we're assuming that access isn't great and we're doing hand work. So just go with hand.
Copy, thanks.
Yep. And there's other, I mean, we can use, if we're, depending on what the conditions are there, our foresters can call out an acreage rate if we're doing, you know, a mechanical work over large areas too. I saw another hand pop up. Mary, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I've been talking with, and I'm with State Forestry, but I've been talking to a lot of our contractors, encouraging them to get on this list. And some of the questions that I get back that I'm not sure how to answer, one of them is, how can they use subcontractors, and can they be subcontractors to someone who's on the list?
I think I'd like to put that to somebody else. I'm not sure I have a confident answer. Is
What
there anybody from forestry that does?
in my experience in the past, anytime something has been subcontracted, they just had to let you know about it and let you know who was the subcontractor. But it was never stated, that was never stated in price agreements. That was just like work plan requirements. That's all I know.
Yeah, so our work plans, I think what Shannon's saying is our work plans will have rules for if subcontractors are used, then these things are triggered.
Okay, and then the other question that came up that was kind of weird, the way I answered it, the question was, so are you gonna pay me to haul my logs to the mill? And the way I answered it was, no, what we're looking for is that the hauling rate would be like if we had a firewood project where we were taking firewood out to a Navajo chapter house or something like that, where you're just hauling the wood, not for your own purposes, but for some other project. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we have, before our foresters can call that and get that wood hauling approved at all on a work plan, it's going to be reviewed by our legal team, our contracts folks. And we've developed a set of guidance with legal on when we can put that in our own work plans. So it's you won't see log hauling showing up on a project to pay you to take it from the forest to wherever you want to take it. It's going to be pretty specific on what that hauling is. And we're looking for somebody to move the logs because we need the logs moved for some reason, right? So, and so don't expect that to be a part of all these projects. We're now paying you to, do it in all cases. It's going to be, there are some rules to when we're allowed to use it. The contractors don't really need to understand that. It just, because once it shows up on a work plan, then you're bidding on doing that service for us or whichever other, unit of government is using the price agreement to get that done.
And along those lines, the same thing applies to like machine unloading and loading would not be a given for every time you take a machine out to the woods. It would be used for specific purposes.
Yeah, machine loading and unloading is in conjunction so we ran into this because we got some federal money last summer to support firewood log hauling from Elliott Barker to various sites. And we're still working on those projects now. And part of it, one of those projects included the National Guard. And so at that point, we're like, okay, we need to separate the actual loading and unloading from the actual hauling mileage rate because, some people don't have self-loading trucks, but they have a log truck and they need a different piece of equipment to go out. So if you could provide loading and unloading services, well, that's a machine that can load up a log truck, right? So that might be the log truck itself, if it's self-loading, or it might not be. So it's just depending on each contractor, thinking that through before they bid their prices. But we do have it separated out for that reason, because we had a project where, okay, Forest Guard, the National Guard trucks couldn't load their own trucks. So we needed that specific practice as a standalone. That makes sense.
So I think it's safe to say that when they're bidding on any kind of mechanical treatment, they're bidding on that treatment for all the things that it includes, and that these other things are for specific instances where we only need that type of work, or it's an unusual project or something like that, and that they're not going to be seeing prices added on for each piece of the actual operation.
Yeah. I mean, don't expect us to do. Yeah, we're not going to use. For those of you who are used to how we do work, don't expect it to change too much. And it won't. It's not like all of a sudden we need all of these things all the time, but they pop up every now and again. So most likely, most contractors won't ever see that item being on a project, but a few will, because it's just a more rare item that we need on the price agreement.
I think it's just for the reason we're adding those prices is because we end up with projects where it's remote, difficult material that's not otherwise be able to be utilized by that operator. So if you're normally hauling firewood off projects and hauling firewood and getting rid of logs and have your own thing going, and that's already going, we're not going to all of a sudden start paying you to load your own logs and haul your log. We're trying to get some funding in there and an option for us to be able to move wood that is not otherwise desirable. And so we're trying to make sure that that's appropriate, but it's in challenging situations where it's difficult to get to, or not close to a mill or not close to a market. So we need to pay to get rid of it, pay to haul it, or pay to, like Mary said, hauling it to, you know, if there's a firewood project where wood's getting donated to or given to or sold to or whatever, it's in challenging situations where we've got to get the wood off the ground and we had to come up with something new.
Yeah, you'll see us using it when we have specific money to do it, like we got a grant from the Forest Service to do it, or when there's a legitimate forest health management reason to do it that's within our own authority. So it's not the hauling is not like free for all on hauling now that it's on the agreement. Quite the opposite. We're still under rules about when we can use many of the items we have here.
Jeremy's hand is up.
Jeremy, you might be muted. We don't hear you. Well, it says you're muted now. We don't have audio on you, Jeremy. Maybe try putting it in the chat if your audio is not working. And in the meantime, we got a question in the chat from Jaime Villegas. Is there a work item for removal of all material depending on heavy, medium, and light? So that you know, heavy, medium, and light, we're talking about how much basal area we're reducing. And, you know, what all material means, you know, usually we're not doing that. We're leaving something behind, right? But the reason we have those items is, you know, if we have an extremely, you know, I'm imagining super thick forest with lots of basal area and we're going way out of there, then we're probably going to doing the heavy. And so, I don't know if that answers your question, Jaime, but that's why we've broken them out between the different effort levels on those items. And Jeremy, we still don't hear you, but did you want to put your question in the chat? And while we're waiting for that, yeah, anybody else? I don't see a lot of hands up. Hunter, your hands up again.
Hey, one more newbie question here. So if you're a potential contractor, a new company to this New Mexico state system, and you want to have the opportunity to bid, what documents exactly do I need to submit and where do they need to be submitted?
So we have, did you receive the emails we sent out, the notice from GSD and the links to ePro and all that?
And I made those accounts, those are done. Got that part.
Great. So Michael Saavedra could probably answer this one for you then.
Yes, all bidding has to be made in the ePro system, ePro NM, which you said you've registered for. We are not accepting any paper submissions. We are still accepting only electronic submissions in our ePro NM. So make sure you're registered. Don't do this at the last minute because sometimes people get in at the last minute and they don't have enough time to complete their bids. And as soon as 2 o'clock comes around on bid opening date, that system completely shuts that bid down and no one else can submit a bid. So even if you're 1 second late, we will not accept that bid because the system will not allow it. And so just make sure you're familiar with it and give yourself enough time to get in there and answer submit the documents that are required. There's not much that's required. You could complete the the first page of the bid document and upload it, or you can just answer the questions if you've already registered, which are such questions as your company name, federal identification number, address, a contact information, state ID number, and then also upload your pricing sheet.
Perfect. That's super helpful. Thank you. Just one last part of that. Is there anywhere it's appropriate to upload supporting documents like accreditation certificates, etc., or is that not necessary?
It's not necessary, but it is allowed. You can go ahead and upload it with in ePro&M. It's in the same page where you can upload your pricing item sheet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you know that I think we should talk a little bit about how we use our price agreement more. Again, we're not like the state land office where you can bid like really high on an item and then you can always lower it later. Say, oh, I don't need that much. No, the price is the price. The only way to change it is the escalation de-escalation clause for the duration of this agreement. So we're going to keep hammering that because it really, I think, does affect. I mean, and one of the things that worries us is people are used to bidding on the state land office agreement. It's used differently than we apologize for those inconsistencies between state government agencies, but that's the reality of ours. And nobody's going to probably use ours more than we will. So we think that's important in helping you have that guidance when you're thinking about your rates. And the last thing is we're looking obviously at costs. When our foresters are looking at selecting people who are on the agreement for projects, and but it's not the only thing. There's availability as a concern. There's timing of projects. There's geographic areas where different contractors operate. So there's plenty of room in there to, if you're in the ballpark of the price that we're expecting to pay for our work, that's we're not locked in always to the lowest bidder. For various reasons, and so we can't give more guidance than that really, but just wanting everybody to be very clear on, it's not all about price for us, but the price you bid is the most important number that you have control over. So, yeah.
There's 3 questions in the chat.
Great. So we'll go with are contractors going to be based purely on lowest price? I think I just answered the question. I'm not the person who I don't pick from the list like a lot of our foresters do for my position, but no, there are various situations where it's not the lower price that gets picked. Can you begin the entry for the bid and save it and then submit later, or does this need to be completed right away? Michael, did you have that answer?
Yes, you can go ahead and start your entering of information into the ePro&M system. You can save it, and then you can always go back in at any other time and reopen it, and your previous information should already be saved for you. So you don't have to put all of your information in one session.
Great. And is the mapping line item only to include the field effort of mapping acres and handing over shapefiles, or should this also include production of cartography to involve application of GIS and delivering maps? The actual map production, like desktop map production, no, I think we're talking about, we want you to go, we have give us shapefiles or whatever the format is, the KMLs on specific things we're looking for mapping. So, yeah, not the kind of professional level. It's just the field work and the data, the raw data, not the maps themselves. We tend to do that in-house.
Jacob, the mapping is an hourly. So if we needed maps and the contractor had the potential to do it, and we had the money to pay for the time, I could see us having them make maps too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Mary. Oh yeah, so what other factors? So geography, availability, we have a lot of projects that are, you know, we have several projects that are, frequently that are, we have time constraints, narrow windows where we're trying to get people in. I think those are the major ones, but
for anybody who's new to this process or may not quite understand this, you're not bidding against each other right now for us to get like the lowest bid. You're bidding what it costs you to do that job and for you to be on a list with that price there. So we have a list of people with different capabilities, different equipment across the state to cover all regions. So you're not bidding against each other right now for the number one lowest spot. We're compiling a list that you have put a price on that's a set price, with some caveats, so that we can select based on where we are and what the project is. So I don't know if there's new people on here, but there's a couple questions about lowest bid. There's a variety of things that go into our decision making on when we're selecting. It's where is it, what capabilities, what equipment are we looking for, who's available at that time. There's a lot that goes into it. Maybe I don't know if that helps clarify.
Yeah.
This is Michael with State Purchasing. I'd like to just clarify that with the initial bid, we are looking at lowest price. However, we're looking at multiple bidders so that we can make an award to multiple awardees so that we don't have just the lowest bidder of the one item. And so that's where the agency can come in and as stated, they can look at availability to make sure that people are available to perform the project as well in a timely manner, not just the lowest price at that point, but they have to have their internal requirements in order to follow, in order to pick that successful awardee.
This is Mary. And one thing that really happens in the field is as we have these projects come in, we have target acres that we're trying to reach. And so that is one of the things that pushes us towards picking the bidders that have lower prices is so we can meet those acres. So it really depends on how the money is colored. For example, if a grant proposal said they're going to use local contractors, then we may need to use contractors who are closer to the area rather than the lowest person or something like that. But because we are interested in getting the most number of acres, the biggest bang for the buck, and that's kind of what we report and how we go. If you bid really high, it's likely you're not going to get called to do the work.
Higher prices, the fewer acres we can get done within our budget. That's the, and the less we accomplish with the public dollars we're entrusted to use. So it continues to be important. Andrew?
Question in the chat, and Jeremy has his hand up still.
Max has another question for Michael on ePro. Next.
Yeah, Michael, this is just a technical thing that I ran into today. Updated all of the registration requirements in ePro, and at the end, I just hit I acknowledge that everything is good, and it automatically just entered a bid for me of 0. And so I feel like I was missing something. I feel a little bit technically incompetent on this deal. Do I need to upload the itemized sheet, or what did I miss?
Yes, upload the itemized sheet with your pricing for each item that you're going to be bidding on. And just a reminder, you don't have to bid on every item, only the items that you can provide services for. Now, that 0.00 is common. Now, what occurs is in the past, we used to have people type in the pricing into the system. And then what the system would do is it would calculate your final total dollar amount for you and give you a dollar amount. Let's say if it's $100,000 or $10,000, $1 million, and it would give you the amount. But because we're no longer having you type in that amount, it's giving you a 0.00. So what you're doing is common. So all you have to do is make sure you submit that item's pricing sheet with your pricing in it, and that's it.
Okay, and then on the directions for that pricing itemized sheet, I did see somewhere where it said if you're not bidding on an item, a line item, that I need to write no bid next to that? Do we need to do that on every one that we're not bidding on?
Yes, please, because the reason for it is because if you leave it blank or if you put 0.00, the buyer might think you're offering those services for free at $0. And so if you're not going to offer them for free, if it's a no bid, that's why we would prefer a no bid.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so other question in the chat is wood processing federally funded? Pretty much for everything on this price agreement, it depends. We certainly have federally funded wood processing projects that we have grants for right now, that we're not using, this price agreement for because we don't have these items on the price agreement at the moment, but we're excited to next year, right? So, but at the same time, it's potential that we don't use federal funds, but we need it done if we have the right state funds in the right situation. So, like I think more likely to be federally funded projects, but you know what? It's a big mix of federal and state dollars that come through forestry projects. So, yeah, I think that if your question there was actually about SAM.gov and that's the service you can provide, then you definitely want to still focus on SAM.gov because federal is likely the way money's going to come for that. You don't have to be registered for SAM.gov to get on this list. No, you can go ahead and apply for, put in your bids for the price agreement. And now you're on the price agreement and you can work on the SAM.gov later. And just, you're going to need that before you get offered any potential work from the price agreement. And being on the price agreement, again, it's not a guarantee of work. That's why people, I think, today are asking about the price information. It's just giving us the ability to go to the price agreement and search through the different vendors who have offered different prices for different sorts of items, hopefully giving us really strong coverage for the type of work we do across the state. Quality of work or the ability to meet landowner specification for what the land should look like factor into the selection of a contractor. With some of the federal and state programs, funds are being used to treat acres for fuel reduction in private lands. How will the landowner requirements be taken into account? So the requirements for our projects that we administer when we select a contractor through the price agreement, those are requirements. Landowner preferences may factor in and can factor into our work plans, but the work plans are coming from us, the Forestry Division, or whichever agency is using the price agreement to procure that contractor. So, so the work plan that is being offered to contractors on the price agreement, that's the expectation. There's a question about quality of work here. I think that quality of work is definitely a factor. Our foresters, I think I'll speak for the foresters here that, our projects are personal. Like when you develop a project, you want to see it implemented the way it was designed. So, I think that, it's natural that eventually trust becomes a big part of this situation. But it's also the case that, for smaller we have big projects. So we can have multiple contractors working on, on different aspects of the same project. And that's good for us too. And that allows us to spread out, work out more and get more done more quickly with the funding we have. There are time limits on a lot of the funding we get. We have to spend it. There is some use it or lose it with some federal funds. So I think that, this question is really getting at quality of work. Sometimes quality is also speed. Speed is a factor of some quality at times. I don't know. It's kind of a broad question, but I'm hoping that was an acceptable answer. Mr. Lovato, you've got your hand up.
Hi, it's actually Mrs. Lovato today. He's sitting here. A couple of questions. So if I'm understanding these bids or these contracts are going to be statewide, is that correct? Or are you guys targeting specific areas for this work?
Yeah, so there's no specific work for what we're talking about today. This is the, it's like, the way usually the state government or governments need to buy things, and that's usually the way price agreements work. So they'll go out and say, hey, we need to buy paper, and so they'll do a price agreement for office supplies, and people will give their prices for, okay, I'm going to sell the government staples, pencils, and paper, and desks and things like that. So in our case, we're doing forestry treatments, right? So you know, the price agreement, once you're on it, it allows us to go select you from it, and then that really speeds up our ability to get work done on the forest in New Mexico, because you know we've got the prices, and we can go to the price agreement to select a vendor, and get the work done. So this is not about specific projects. This is about you know what prices you can offer as a vendor for specific activities that you can accomplish. And then yeah, it is statewide. So we do projects statewide using this price agreement. The majority of our projects, in fact.
Then basically we should accommodate if for some reason, you know, we're up north and you have a project down south, then, you know, it's kind of hard to be competitive in that way because we have to add per diem for a crew. So, but I mean, we can accommodate all that. It's just saying, I mean, that's how you want it done, right? So that we travel near and far.
It's one of the reasons we added the mobilization cost charge to it, and we'll clarify that too. But to kind of make it easier to travel for work a little bit more, and it is, I think, based on mileage, and so it's almost like the further you go, you know, it scales with your mileage rate, and so you can use that mileage rate to, you know, plan for some of those expenses if you think about how you want to do that. So, but yeah, and I think that there's also a section in there where there's different regions of the state where you want to offer your services. So you can offer it statewide, or you can say, hey, I'm only going to work in this part of the state. There's a section of the agreement that talks to that as well. But yeah, I mean, if you're on the agreement and you say you can offer it statewide, we might go to you to select you for a project down south, even though you're up north. And you can always turn it down if you can't get it done. And in fact, you know, people turn down work occasionally. So.
And if you're bidding statewide and you're putting the highest price possible that it's going to cost you, you'll probably outbid. You're probably going to get yourself out of local work if you're bidding a super high cost because you're estimating that you're going to work across the state. So you can figure that into what you bid, but there's also, like Jacob just said, that you can specify what parts of the state you will work in.
And you can think about it, you can keep your base prices low, but then you can think about, okay, you know, we're not going to be doing a lot of travel for local projects, but your mobilization costs. So maybe you're going a little higher on the mobilization costs. You know, that's the reason it's in there, to kind of help people kind of be more competitive and get us better coverage across the state.
So are we able to submit pricing for different regions? Like you said, we have an option to check off where we want to locate. Can we do like pick the south and pick the north, or is it going to be one contract?
You can only say where you're willing to go work. But no, there's not. You can't bid a different price for the south and for the same item. It's one price statewide.
Okay, thanks.
When do price agreements go into effect, or rather, when are the projects going to begin using these prices? Mr. Saavedra, what do we expect there? I think the close is on January 5th. And
I think it's fair to say that the price agreement may go into effect in mid-February to late February.
Okay.
And then at that point, it's up to your agency to decide when it wants to begin using it.
Michael, this is Max again. If we're already on statewide price agreement for fiscal year 23 here, or this fiscal year that we're in, we have a price agreement already in existence. And if this one overlays that one, is there going to be some confusion as to which one gets used if this goes into February?
It's up to the agency to determine which price agreement they want to use, because it's up to their discretion.
Okay, great, thanks.
I think you can expect us to start using this as soon as it's active, which late to late February, I think is what Michael said. And yeah, that should be pretty quick once that happens.
But Jacob, won't we still use, if we have an existing work plan, you'll just stay with the price agreement with that work plan until that work is done?
Correct. Active current projects will be under the price agreement that was used when you selected the contractor. At this point, do you need verification of insurance or not until a bit of word? No, I don't think that unless there's a GSD upload item there, there's no insurance requirement that I'm aware of. Michael, is that correct?
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, great. And then how often does the audit for employee health coverage occur? I don't know.
I can answer that. We actually do not do an audit. We just make sure that you verify and you provide us some documentation that you do comply with employee health coverage, and that's only at the time of bid opening at that one time.
Scanning for hands again. Mrs. Lovato, you've still got your hand up. Do you have another question?
No, sorry, I'll take it down.
Okay. And other questions? We're here for as long as you need us, as long as you have questions. And if we run out, we'll close the meeting.
Jacob, Max again. On the mobilization deal, typically, we're going to bid on, say, mileage to cover, if I'm just working really in the Bernalillo, Sandoval County area, whatever, I'm going to bid a mileage to kind of cover that. So then if I go to put a mobilization in that goes beyond kind of that area, does the mobilization, do I need to give you that mileage from the base, from the house, basically from the house to the new location? I don't know if I'm making sense there, or in what I've already bid.
No, you don't need the, you're not describing the mileage will be determined when we're selecting contractors from the work plan from the price agreement. And so it's based on, how far you're going from your base of operations to your, to the project site. And that, that's determined at the project development stage, right? So if we're looking for a contractor there, we have your address, we can figure out your mileage and estimate those costs when we're developing the project. If we're looking at selecting you from the agreement, because cost is a big part of how we have it factors into your costs and what we end up paying you, and it's just kind of a little bit separate. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I mean,
I think so, but I guess there, I'm seeing some confusion of if the forest manager comes on the project development side and looks at the price agreement and says, okay, we've got a price per acre, but then we've also got this mobilization price. Is that just something that's worked out between the manager and the the contractor to say, well, on this particular project, that's already built in, or on this particular project, we need to add this on. Because if he's just going and looking at the price agreement, there's different costs there. How does he is? I guess my point is he going to go to the contractor first to ask him those questions?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're going to have your address, right? So it's like, we want to know, yeah, I think if they don't know where your base of operations are, so they can't figure out what the mileage is between, they'll reach out and be, hey, what's your address? I need to figure out what the mileage would be to use you on this project. So that's a question you might get from a forester, I imagine. You know, and when we're looking at, and that, I mean, that obviously indicates they're looking at selecting you from the price agreement for the project.
Mm-hmm. So when I'm bidding that project, though, I guess my point is like,
well, you're not bidding the project, you're bidding the price agreement.
Well, right. No, I understand that. So when I'm making my price for the price agreement, I've already am calculating in an average mileage so that it kind of covers me in my costs. Now that's what I would typically do. Now with this new mobilization line item,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Do I go back out of my original?
Yeah, so if you what I mean, I'm just spitballing. It's up to you how you want to do it. You got to figure that part out, right? It's a little new for the contractors and it's a little new for us. I think it's good in the end. There will need to be some communication between the foresters and the contractors to make sure that we're anticipating the correct costs when we're looking at selecting contractors from the price agreement, because we have budgets, you know, that we need to follow. But again, like if you're, I mean, what is your typical travel distance and what do you normally, how does that normally factor into your previous prices? So, I mean, just in your mind, I think what you got to do is keep them separate. Here's the cost of doing the work, and here's what I can kind of expect based on what typical travel I'm used to doing on projects that I've been involved with before. I don't know, like it seems like the question you kind of got to answer for yourself when you're setting your bid prices.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
You have a date that the wood processing projects will be put out for bid. So we are currently bidding out wood processing projects, you know, to vendors. I think Ernest, and I think you and I spoke. We're currently putting stuff out from the price agreement. Once we have wood processing as an activity on the price agreement, like Michael mentioned, like late February-ish, mid-late February, at that point, we won't be putting it out to bid. We'll be looking at the price agreement if we need that service, and we'll be calling people up to say, hey, I need some wood processing. Are you available? And so that there's no putting it out for bid. It's you know, your job now is to make sure that you need to be like, okay, here are my costs for doing the wood processing. And if you're bidding, for example, only on wood processing, I would encourage you not to ignore the mobilization cost and also make sure you're bidding on that, right? So that's so that, you know, we can help, you know, we can cover those items. So I would hate to see somebody who just provides that specific service, and then when we need it, we don't have that mobilization charge in there too for you. So in terms of what we need, in terms of what might be coming for wood processing next year, I don't think we know what we're going to be up to right now today. Yeah. It depends on what we get done under our current non, you know, projects outside of the price agreement. Mr. Raymond Orozco? Get your hand up.
Yeah, could you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, it might be a new guy question here, but how much work is forecasted coming up this year, specifically for like defensible space, hand thinning, firewood, wood chip removal, and chipping services?
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a difficult to answer. You know, defensible space, there is a lot of work out there for, I mean, I mean, it's hard to answer. Look, right now, for example, the federal, a lot of the federal programs are being ranked and scored. Like submissions have gone in for community wildfire defense grants. There are some very significant size proposals from New Mexico in there. And if, depending on how many of those end up getting awarded, that's going to determine how many millions of dollars are coming into those applicants to do that defensible space WUI work, right? And so a lot of that is still up in the air about what's going to happen. But I see Andrew put on his video, and I knew he would have an answer to this question.
Yeah, just wanted to jump in there and help if you want. And Jacob, you, like Clay said earlier, you hit the nail on the head. It's hard to tell right now. However, the variables of WUI work still apply. Again, and I go back to what Shannon said, with this agency and this price agreement, it's worth being extremely clear that the price should match what you think is a fair price for WUI work, considering the things that constrain either use of product or professional falling, all those kind of things that make that work maybe more expensive, steep slopes, hand falling, those kind of things. Does that answer it, Jacob? Do you think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Andrew, this is Mary. Would it be fair to say that we anticipate a majority of the projects utilizing this particular agreement, and that we have millions and millions and millions of dollars coming into the state and provided by the state where we will be doing projects? So there's going to be a lot of work.
Yep. That's the for sure thing. That's the one thing we do know.
And I think that
we're really concerned if there's enough contractors out there, but we think there's going to be work to keep everyone busy.
I think we certainly hope so. And it gets a little bit, the nuance there is, like you mentioned, a list of things that you probably provide as a company. Now, a lot of money coming in for a lot of different types of activities. You notice we have a lot of different things in the price agreement. Hand thinning, mechanical thinning are huge items for us that we use all the time. So just keeping in mind, like, yeah, I think absolutely true. Our funding is going up. We're trying to increase the pace and scale of our operations. We're hiring new foresters to get more projects done. And so I think for those of you who have been on the agreement in the past, like, the opportunities coming out of us are only going up in the next couple of years, definitely not down.
Yeah. And there's an acronym in the chat from a question, IDIQ. Again, this is not an IDIQ contract. That's a federal contracting mechanism. This is a statewide price agreement. And so, whoops, my questions went away. What else does it say? Oh, how many contractors are you planning to award? So basically, these are invitations to bid on bid items laid out all throughout this meeting. And so that invitation to bid gets you on, if you fill out the bid, submit your paperwork on ePro-NM and get on this statewide price agreement, that will get you on a list. And there is no number. There is no number of awards. It's based on who bids on items and who all submits those sealed bids.
And thanks, Michael, for throwing the ePro link into the chat.
This just gets you on a list that we can select you for projects. This just gets you on, this is like a contractor list, the state price agreement. It's like getting on a contractor list. It's for the state of New Mexico, not the U.S. Forest Service. New Mexico Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources Department, Forestry Division.
Or any other state. I mean, I think a lot of other public agencies in the state, so cities, counties, stolen water conservation districts, they're free to use our price agreement too. If they want to go use this price agreement, they can do that. So that's one of the benefits of being on this. like we're probably the #1, user of our own price agreement in the state because we're state forestry, but we don't have anything against other people using our agreement to get contractors moving. Not seeing other questions pop up for now, but they've been coming in steady, so we'll just wait here. Keep them up if you want. My dog is asking to be fed though, so if I don't see questions come up, I'll probably end the meeting. Well, I think we're good then. So I'm super happy and excited to see so many people join the call today. We're really excited that this price agreement is posted. We've been working on it for a long time. We'll take a peek at the comments. We'll look closely at all the different questions we got today and decide. I'll work with Michael and Mr. Ortega to think about how we need to respond, and we'll get that uploaded to the invitation to bid webpage, so that everybody has the same information and can have a fair bid process there. So once again, thank you and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.